on that, going to the headlines at this hour.
As a backward district, sir, in the lines of the law, with the Honorable Prime Minister and with the Honorable...
Urged Indie stages protest, resorts to sloganeering and ruckus over Modi 3.0's first budget. Big development in Malegaon blast investigation. Special NIA court begins final hearing. Face off over Mamata's refutes to Bangladeshi's comment. Governor seeks report. BJP stages protests. Bihar passes anti-paper leak NEET bill amid massive showdown over NEET scam. Bihar Assembly passes anti-paper leak bill. "26-year-old UPSC aspirant electrocuted to death in the national capital. Who is accountable?" Plane crashes during takeoff in Kathmandu. Nepal media reports suggest 18 bodies recovered, pilot rescued. Tragedy struck in Delhi as a 26-year-old UPSC aspirant met a shocking demise near the Patel Nagar metro station. According to police reports, the victim was electrocuted by an electric current at the station gate on Tuesday afternoon. This incident has sparked controversy, with the BJP blaming the AAP government for negligence, leading to the unfortunate loss of life.
Civic apathy in the national capital has killed a youth. A 26-year-old UPSC aspirant identified as Nilesh Rai was electrocuted in Delhi. The shocking incident was reported on Tuesday afternoon near Patel Nagar metro station.
And at that time, there was a water locking incident because of the heavy rainfall in the national capital. After that, what happened that the boy touched this iron gate at that point of time. And that time, what happened that the low hanging wires, naked wires, got touched through this iron rod in which there was electric current. And when he touched that electric pole, at that time, the incident took place. And right now I'm joined by one of the eyewitnesses who was present at that point of time. अच्छा, मुझे ये बताइए, जब ये दुर्घटना घटी, कितने बजे की दुर्घटना है?
लगभग 1-2 बज रहे होंगे अराउंड। बेसिकली मैं यहाँ से अपने घर जा रहा था, बारिश हो रही थी बहुत तेज़। तो राइट नाउ मैं उधर देखा कि बहुत ज़्यादा भीड़ लगी हुई है और वो जो पर्सन था नीलेश जिसका नाम है वो इस पे चिपके पड़े थे, बिल्कुल मुंह के उनका चिपका पड़ा था। हमने ये देखा था कि वो शायद से लेफ़्ट में ही आसपास लाइब्रेरी है, तो यहाँ पर पूरा वाटर मतलब पानी भरा पड़ा था, तो गेट को पकड़ के साइड से निकलने की कोशिश कर रहे होंगे। बट जो ये पोल्स की तार है यहाँ पर कोई चिपकी होगी या पानी के अंदर करंट होगा, तो जैसे उन्होंने गेट को जैसे पकड़ा तो उस पर एकदम से चिपक गए। और हमने भी उस टाइम पे कोशिश करी आसपास से डंडा ला के कि हम थोड़ा सा कोशिश करके हटा सके, बट पुलिस भी उस टाइम थी, पुलिस भी मना कर रही थी हमें यहाँ पर आने की।
जिस वक्त ये दुर्घटना घटी उस वक्त क्या यहाँ पर बारिश का पानी लगा हुआ था?
लगा पड़ा था, और जब तक फायर ब्रिगेड आई आधे घंटे तक कहीं भी बिजली नहीं काटी गई। जब पुलिस वालों ने भी, अपनी दिल्ली पुलिस ने भी बहुत हेल्प करी कि साइड हटाने की, जब उन्होंने कोशिश करके साइड हटाया तब भी बिजली नहीं कटी हुई थी। उन्होंने भी बहुत मुश्किल से उन्होंने भी कोशिश करी कि कहाँ से कहीं कुछ भी हो सकता है। बहुत सारे 50 से 60 लोग थे, सब ने हेल्प करी पर नहीं वो हो सका।
The civic apathy has now landed the AAP government in trouble for turning a blind eye. Mounting the attack, opposition BJP is now blaming the government's negligence for the death.
26 वर्षीय यूपीएससी के एस्पिरेंट नीलेश की मौत जो है वो नेग्लिजेंस नहीं है, वो आपराधिक है और वो स्टेट स्पॉन्सर्ड हत्या है। परंतु आम आदमी पार्टी की प्राथमिकता क्या है? दूसरों पर दोषारोपण करो, पूरा दिन प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करो और अपने शराब घोटाले में जो लिप्त मुखिया है, जो निर्लजता से मुख्यमंत्री बने हुए हैं तिहाड़ जेल के भीतर से, उनका बचाव करो।
The police stated that upon reaching the scene, they discovered that the victim had been electrocuted by an electric current in the gate.
One terrorist was gunned down in a fierce exchange of fire with the forces in a forested terrain of Jammu and Kashmir's Kupwara in the early hours of Wednesday. Acting on specific intelligence, the forces engaged the terrorist and a gunfight ensued. Here's a report with all the latest updates.
Amid the ongoing counter-terror operations in the valley, a fierce gunfight broke out between the forces and terrorists in the covert area of Kupwara. Acting on specific intelligence, a joint forces party proceeded to the area in the early hours of Wednesday. Detecting suspicious movement, the forces challenged the terrorists and a gunfight ensued. Dramatic footage showed the joint forces going deep into the forested terrain of Kupwara in pursuit of the terrorists. More security reinforcements were rushed to the encounter site as the gunfight raged on.
A terrorist has been killed in Kowat Kupwara in North Kashmir, and meanwhile the reports suggest that the Indian Army, whose soldier was injured in this gun battle, has also succumbed to the injuries. But we are waiting for the official confirmation as far as the Brave Heart is concerned. This operation was launched after getting the credible leads about the presence of terrorists in the Kowat forest in Kupwara, North Kashmir, and this input was turned into an encounter when the joint forces of SOG Kupwara and 28RR in North Kashmir went close to the suspected spot, and the hiding terrorists fired upon the joint forces, triggering an operation. This is the second day of encounter, and the encounter is still continuing. We are expecting that the more terrorists would be neutralized, because as per the reports suggesting that this is a group of terrorists who have infiltrated recently, and they were making movements in the Kupwara.
While one terrorist was neutralized by the forces, a junior commissioned officer sustained injuries in the exchange of fire. The officer later succumbed to his injuries, adding to the mounting toll of soldiers amid an uptick in terror attacks in the valley. While Pakistan continues to push terrorists across the border, our forces are determined to defeat their nefarious designs.
In an intriguing turn of events, entitled trainee IAS officer Pooja Khedkar has been reported missing for the last 5 days. Khedkar, who allegedly faked her disability certificates to secure an IAS posting, earlier failed to report to her training academy despite being recalled. Here's a report.
Facing the music for faking disabilities to secure posting and demanding perks she's not entitled to, trainee IAS Pooja Khedkar is now missing. It turns out that there is no information on the whereabouts of the entitled trainee IAS for the last 5 days. Pune police said that they tried reaching her on the phone, but it was switched off. The trainee IAS, who has been under fire since her alleged fakeries came to light, went untraceable after the Delhi police filed an FIR against her. Delhi police booked her for misrepresenting and falsifying facts.
5 दिन हो गया है, अभी तक कुछ पता नहीं चल पा रहा है। पुणे पुलिस का कहना है कि जो डीएम के खिलाफ कंप्लेंट फाइल हुआ है उस पर बयान दर्ज करना है। लगातार 2 नोटिस भेज चुकी है, लेकिन कुछ उनका पता नहीं चल पा रहा है। कोई लोकेशन ट्रेस नहीं हो पा रहा है, ना फ़ोन चालू है, ना व्हाट्सअप चालू है। साथ ही जो रिलेटिव हैं उनसे भी लगातार संपर्क करने की कोशिश किया जा रहा है कि पूजा खेड़कर का कुछ पता चल पाए, लेकिन पूजा खेड़कर कुछ पता नहीं चल पा रहा।
Earlier, Khetkar failed to meet the deadline of July 23 set by her training academy in Mussoorie to return. She was recalled to her training academy and was also issued a show cause notice by the UPSC. In the notice, Pooja was asked to explain why her IAS training should not be cancelled in light of the charges.
मैंने आपको पहले भी बोला है इस विषय में मैं कोई भी कमेंट नहीं कर सकती. No, but it is related to my thing, so I cannot talk about it. That is the reason.
Guns and police is looking after them, but they are absconding.
No, that's what I'm telling you. Related to this whole issue, I cannot say anything because the rules do not permit me to say.
मैम जांच कमेटी आप
Please let me go. Please let me go.
जांच कमेटी ने आपसे संपर्क किया था.
वही मैं आपको बोल रही हूँ कि इस विषय में मैं मीडिया के साथ कुछ शेयर नहीं कर सकती. जो भी होगा मैं कमेटी के सामने.
लेकिन आपके पिता फरार है. आपके पिता फरार है. इस पे क्या कहेंगे?
नहीं, आप जो भी कहेंगे मैं वही आपको फिर से कह रही हूँ कि इस इशू में मैं अभी कमेंट नहीं कर सकती. द सिविल सर्विस रूल्स डू नॉट परमिट.
लेकिन आपके परिवार
ऑन दिस.
Earlier, Pooja's mother, Manorama Khetkar, was arrested under Arms Act over a viral gun-toting video. While the news continues to tighten around her, the big question remains: how long can Pooja evade the law?
There's a massive furor and political war of words in Bengal. West Bengal Governor C.V. Ananda Bose sought a report from Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee over her offer to refugees from Bengal fleeing the deadly student protests in Bangladesh. Watch this report.
West Bengal Governor C.V. Ananda Bose waded into the row over CM Mamata Banerjee's offer of sheltering Bangladeshis amid the ongoing student protests. Asking the Chief Minister to send a report over her remark, the Raj Bhavan said states have no say in allowing refugees from a foreign country on Indian soil.
চিন্তা করবেন না, বাংলাদেশে নিয়ে যদি আপনাদের কোনো পরিবার থাকে, পরিজন থাকে, কেউ পড়াশোনা করতে যান, কেউ চিকিৎসা করতে এসে ফিরতে না পারেন, যদি কোনো সহযোগিতার দরকার হয়, আমি বাংলাদেশ নিয়ে কোনো কথা বলতে পারি না, কারণ ওটা একটা আলাদা দেশ. যা বলার ইন্ডিয়া গভর্নমেন্ট বলবে, আমি বলতে পারি না. কিন্তু আমি এটুকু বলতে পারি, অসহায় মানুষ যদি বাংলায় দরজা খটখটানি করে, আমরা তাদের আশ্রয় নিশ্চয়ই দেব.
The governor said any matter concerning external affairs was in the centre's domain. Not mincing words, the Raj Bhavan says the public statement by the CM offering shelter to Bangladeshis implied constitutional transgression. Meanwhile, through an official note, the Bangladeshi government registered its protest with India over Mamata's remark. With the BJP seeing red and the Bangladesh government too registering its protest, the big question remains: will Mamata retract her statement?
Massive anti-terror operation underway in Jammu and Kashmir's Kupwara district. One terrorist has been neutralized in the ongoing operation and one Jawan is also injured. We'll get more on this after a very short break. Stay tuned. Keep watching the Republic TV.
Amity has been ranked India's #1 private university in the recently released Education World Rankings. A testimony to Amity's globally benchmarked standards in education.
Good morning. Today's hearing is for the American people who are seeking answers about the attempted assassination of President Trump. A little over a week ago, Americans watched in horror as a shooter attempted to assassinate President Donald J. Trump at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. The gunman nearly succeeded. The bullet that struck President Trump's head was less than an inch from taking his life. President Trump survived, but one rallygoer, Corey Comparator, tragically did not. 2 others were seriously injured. It was a horrifying moment in American history. The horror was exceeded only by the bravery of the law enforcement agents who threw themselves in harm's way when shots were fired. the bravery of a crowd unwavering in its refusal to panic, and the bravery of a bloody President Trump refusing to run. While we give overwhelming thanks to the individual Secret Service agents who did their jobs under immense pressure, this tragedy was preventable. The Secret Service's protective mission is to protect U.S. and visiting world leaders and safeguard U.S. elections through protection of candidates and nominees. The Secret Service has a zero-fail mission, but it failed on July 13th and in the days leading up to the rally. The Secret Service has thousands of employees and a significant budget, but it has now become the face of incompetence. The committee has a long track record of providing oversight of the Secret Service. Our predecessors, both Jason Chaffetz and Elijah Cummings, among others, worked together to issue warnings and recommendations to address obvious shortcomings in the agency's makeup and operations. Unfortunately, those warnings and recommendations have gone unheeded. A former president and current candidate for president was shot in the head by a sniper within 500 feet of the podium. This is unacceptable, and we are concerned the Secret Service lacks the proper management to keep protectees safe from bad actors. Americans demand answers, but they have not been getting them from the Secret Service. We are instead learning about new facts about the events surrounding the attempted assassination every day from whistleblowers and leaks. Americans demand accountability, but no one is yet to be fired for this historic failure. Today's witness, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle, is here under subpoena to answer questions about how the agency failed President Trump and the victims who attended the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. It is my firm belief, Director Cheadle, that you should resign. However, in complete defiance, Director Cheadle has maintained she will not tender her resignation. Therefore, she will answer questions today from members of this committee seeking to provide clarity to the American people about how these events were allowed to transpire. We will ask these questions because the Secret Service and its parent agency, the Department of Homeland Security, have been unwilling to provide answers to the American people. DHS has sought to push this hearing to a different time. Secret Service has suggested the hearing occur without media presence, and both agencies have provided only shallow explanations to Congress about what happened on July 13th. Indeed, DHS and Secret Service's lack of communication with the Oversight Committee required me to issue a subpoena compelling Director Cheadle to attend today, and still DHS requested more time to prepare. It shouldn't take this much time or preparation, Director Cheadle, to tell the truth and to be transparent with the American people. I am thankful to the ranking member, Mr. Raskin, for joining me in insisting that Director Cheadle appear today. God knows the ranking member and I disagree on many things, but that does not matter today. The safety of Secret Service protectees is not based on their political affiliation, and the bottom line is that under Director Cheadle's leadership, we question whether anyone is safe. Not President Biden, not the First Lady, not the White House, and certainly not the presidential candidates. The July 13th assassination attempt is one of the darkest days in American political history. It represents the ugliest parts of what American politics has become: hatred of each other and a dangerous turn to extremism. Before we are Republicans or Democrats, we are Americans. If we place our political affiliations above our duty and love of country, we cannot maintain a country. We must ensure our republic is strong, and our republic cannot be strong when our leadership, our elections, our institutions, and our candidates are threatened by extremism and violence. Today, Director Cheadle will answer questions about why she deserves to continue to play a critical role in preserving this country's safety.
Amity has been ranked India's #1 private university in the recently released Education World Rankings. A testimony to Amity's globally benchmarked standards in education.
Gentleman, years back. Chair now recognizes Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Mr. Jordan from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, were you guessing or lying? The day after President Trump is shot, Secret Service spokesman Anthony Guglielmi said, quote, "The assertion that a member of the former president's security team requested additional security resources that the U.S. Secret Service or the Department of Homeland Security rebuffed is absolutely false." The next day, Secretary Mayorkas said, "That is an unequivocally false assertion. We had not received any request for additional security measures that were rebuffed." But 5 days later, the Washington Post said this: "Top officials repeatedly rejected requests from Donald Trump's security detail for more personnel." The next day, the New York Times said this: "Mr. Guglielmi acknowledged that the Secret Service had turned down some requests for additional federal security assets for Mr. Trump's detail." So which is it? Because both statements can't be true. Were you guessing or lying when you said you didn't turn down requests from President Trump's detail?
Neither, sir, and I appreciate the question.
Well, what were you doing? Because those statements don't jive.
So what I can tell you is that for the event in Butler, there were no requests that were denied. As far as requests...
Well, maybe they got tired of asking. Maybe you turned them down so darn much, they said, not worth asking. How many times did you turn them down ahead of that?
I think that it is important to distinguish between what some people may view as a denial of an asset or a request.
Well, is Mr. Guglielmi your spokesperson? He said he acknowledged the Secret Service had turned down some requests. I'm asking how many?
A denial of a request does not equal a vulnerability.
Well, tell me what it is.
There are a number of ways that threats and risks can be mitigated with a number of different assets, whether that be through personnel, whether that be through technology, or other resources.
Well, tell the committee which it was. They asked for additional help in some form or another. You told them no. How many times did you tell them no, and what did you tell them no to?
Again, I cannot speak to specific incidents, but I can tell you in general terms, the Secret Service is judicious with their resources based on...
What does some requests mean? How many times? Some indicate requests is plural. So more than once they asked for additional help and you turned them down. What did they ask for and how many times did you turn them down? Pretty basic questions.
So again, without having all of the details in front of me, sir, what I can tell you is that there are times...
You didn't get briefed on how many times you turned down the Trump detail when they asked for additional help?
I'm sorry.
You didn't get briefed on that before you came to this hearing knowing you were going to get asked that question?
What I can tell you is that in generic terms, when details make a request, there are times that there are alternate ways to cover off on that threat or that risk.
But that's not what he said. He said they were denied certain requests, some requests. This is your spokesperson, not me talking. This is the Secret Service talking. And what a change from absolutely false, unequivocally false to, oh, by the way, there were some times where we didn't give them what they wanted. That's a huge change in 5 days. And the fact that you can't answer how many times you did that, that's pretty darn frustrating, not just for me, but for the country.
I hear your frustration.
Let me ask you this. Were any of those requests denied to President Trump's detail after you knew about the Iranian threat?
What I can tell you, again, I don't know the specifics, is that there are times when we can fill a request. It doesn't necessarily have to be with a Secret Service asset or resource. We can fill that request with locally available assets.
You spoke to anyone at the White House since July 13th?
Yes, I have.
Who'd you talk to?
I have briefed the president and the vice president.
Talked to the First Lady?
No, I have not.
Talked to the White House staff? Anyone in the White House communications?
No, I have not.
Have you talked to the counter sniper who took the shot that took out the bad guy?
Yes, I have.
And can you tell us about that conversation?
I would not want to reveal conversations that I've had with my employees.
But that's exactly the kind of information the American people want to know. American people who pay your salary.
I understand. This is an ongoing investigation. And
Who's all doing the investigating at Secret Service? I know the Inspector General, but is there also an internal investigation in addition to the Inspector General?
We are conducting a mission assurance investigation internally, yes.
You know what it looks like, Director? It looks like you won't answer some pretty basic questions. It looks like you got a 9% raise and you cut corners when it came to protecting one of the most important individuals, most well-known individuals on the planet. A former president, likely the guy who's going to be the next president. It looks like you guys were cutting corners. That's what it looks like to me. Is that true?
I am here today because I want to answer questions, but I also want to be cautious.
You might want to, but you haven't answered. I don't think you've answered one question from the chairman, the ranking member, or me. Well, we got a lot of other people asking. We'll see if your record improves. But right now, you haven't answered, I don't think, any question.
Amity has been ranked India's #1 private university in the recently released Education World Rankings. A testimony to Amity's globally benchmarked standards in education.
Begin our 5 minutes questions, and I will begin. Just for the record, the Secret Service has an annual budget of around $3.1 billion, and I believe around 8,000 employees. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, there were many security failures on the day of the attempted assassination and leading up to that day. Let's start with the building that the shooter used to shoot President Trump from. At any point...
The Union Budget 2024 has laid the roadmap for the Indian financial fortunes of 2024. And joining us today in this interview is Mr. T.V. Somanathan, Finance Secretary, Government of India. Welcome to Republic TV, sir. So starting with this broad, surprising budget to a lot of people, and also a welcome budget for a lot of people as well. What was a broad thought that you had while crafting this year's budget?
So I think the main emphasis in this budget, and I think it comes out clearly in the way that the speech has been presented, was to give a big thrust to employment, both directly through employment-related schemes and incentives, but also indirectly through an improvement in skilling, provision of skills, and in encouragement to employment-intensive sectors and employment-intensive employers like MSMEs. MSMEs are particularly important in terms of generating jobs. So I think employment was the primary focus of this budget. But in addition to that, we have also kept up the theme of continuity with the aims of earlier budgets. So capital investment, infrastructure, and fiscal prudence. These have been hallmarks of the last few budgets, and those themes remain very strong in this budget. That's the continuity, and the newness is on the thrust on employment.
Right. So, sir, since you talked about the fiscal prudence, and we also know that this budget was also to lay the roadmap for Viksit Bharat.
Yes.
And when we talk about Viksit Bharat, so do you think that fiscal prudence, which is a dominant theme of this budget, is going to continue in the next budgets also, going forward in laying the road for Viksit Bharat?
Certainly. I think that for India to become a developed country, we have to be macroeconomically stable, financially strong, and we have to have credibility with both our investors and our citizens. The experience of countries which have been fiscally imprudent, including some of our neighbors, and even the case studies of a few state governments which have gone through a lot of financial troubles, shows clearly that if you lose fiscal prudence, you basically lose the foundation on which development can be built. So you can try to build a huge superstructure, but if the foundation is loose or weak, it will not stand up. And therefore, it is almost a sort of bare necessity that you have to be fiscally prudent. Otherwise, you will end up with a situation where your interest burden will be rising. More and more of your tax revenue goes away just in paying interest on past debts. Then you have nothing left to spend on either investment or on public welfare. So keeping debts under control and keeping the interest burden under control is fundamental to succeeding in this long journey towards a Viksit Bharat. So that focus, I think, is not only important in this budget, but is likely to continue in future budgets as well.
So a lot of people are very happy with how the budget has included employment as its main focus. There is a special, segment for women, having, the budget has kept in mind the inclusion of women in workforce. But overall, there is a general feedback that the government may not have kept the middle class's interest in mind.
I would humbly disagree. I think the government has had the middle class very much front and center in this budget's formulation, and there is a substantial tax relief to the middle class in the form of a higher standard deduction for all salaried tax payers. There is a change in the tax rates for all the slabs from 3 lakhs to 15 lakhs. The combined effect on a salaried taxpayer is 17,500 rupees of saving. And for a non-salaried taxpayer, there is also a saving, because there is a saving without the standard deduction also. Also for the middle class, the exemption on capital gains for listed securities has risen from 1 lakh to 1.25 lakhs. So I would submit that there is a lot in this budget for the middle class. And apart from this, the emphasis on loans for students who don't get benefits from other government schemes, new forms of skill loans, opportunities for middle class entrepreneurs in the MSME sector, all of these I think are major benefits for the middle class. And I think there is a lot there, and they are people who have been kept at the center of the thought process.
Right. And so one dominant and underlying message that this budget has is that you have kept the Capex at 11.11 lakh crore, which is similar to what was pegged in interim budget. So my question to you is, are you trying to send a signal to the industry that the government has done the heavy lifting now? Now it's the onus is on the private sector to drive the economy and the growth.
So I would say it's two separate things. One, the reason that we have fixed the budget at 11.11 lakh crore is the same reason as it was done in February, which is that this is the amount which we think is appropriate for the coming year, given the absorptive capacity of the different infrastructure sectors. And let me point out that that is an increase of 17% over the actual expenditure in the previous year, which is a substantial increase. So it is not as if 11.11 is a small number. It's a very big number, and it is 17% higher than the previous year. Separately, I would also agree that it is time for the private sector to, commit to a larger level of capital investment. But we are not trying to send that signal through this number. I think this number is strong on its own. And the budget also makes the statement that we will continue the pattern of high levels of public investment in infrastructure. That is explicitly stated in the budget. But the rate of growth will be substantial, but may not be the same as it was in earlier years, because the base is already high now.
So there is an indication in the budget about an impending simplification of the income tax laws. So what is this review all about, if you can tell us?
This review is not about rates. It's not about changing tax rates on anything. It is about simplifying the code. Basically, there are a number of complicated sections and provisos and exceptions and explanations which have become necessary over a period of time, the way the original 1961 Act was written, followed by various judicial interpretations, amendments from time to time. So now there seems to be a case for a comprehensive relook, producing a simplified code which will be easier for taxpayers and for advisors to taxpayers to deal with, and for the tax administrators to administer.
And so one thing that has raised concern in this budget is that the indexation benefit that have been taken away with. Yes. And there is a concern that this will increase the tax burden on the seller's part. So what do you have to say in clarification?
I think that's a good question that you've asked, and it needs clarification. It is true that in the past, capital gains on sale of property, that is real estate or gold, used to be taxed at a rate of 20%, but with indexation. So if you had purchased a property, let's say in 2001 at 100 rupees, and you sold it at say 300 rupees now, you got a certain amount of indexation. So the 100 was indexed to something else. And you paid a 20% tax on the real return minus the inflation component. What has been done now is to reduce the rate from 20% to 12.5%, but remove the indexation. Why was this done? It was done as part of a radical simplification of capital gains tax. We have done away with a large number of different rates, different classifications, different periods of holding. Now it's all simplified. All long-term gains are at 12.5% without indexation. Earlier, some had indexation, some did not have indexation. Coming specifically to the question of property, generally property returns in India have been high. People invest in real estate. Why do they invest in real estate? Is it to get the return on a fixed deposit? No. If you wanted a fixed deposit return, then the safest place is fixed deposit. People go into real estate because they expect a much higher rate of return. And our calculations show very clearly that if your rate of return is 11% or above, and which is what people typically expect in real estate, in fact it can be 20%, it can be 25%. If your annual return is 11% or more, then even if you knock off the benefit of indexation, you are better off in the new regime. Because let me give you an example. If your rate of return is 20% per annum and inflation is 5% per annum, what is your net gain? 15%. So earlier you would have paid 20% on the 15%. Now you will pay 12.5% on the 20%. You will actually pay less in the present regime than with indexation. So in real estate, in most cases, people will actually be benefited and will not be losers. There may be some rare exceptions, but that would be unusual. I mean, the majority of people would be better off, and we have fixed this 12.5 on the basis that it will actually not harm the vast majority of property taxpayers.
So coming to jobs, the economic survey gave a clear indication of the number of jobs India needs to generate over the next 10-12 years. Now, the budget soon after made some very elaborate arrangements through private participation and government collaboration. So what is that idea? How much cooperation are you expecting from the private sector, and what continuity of this policy do you see?
So there are 5 schemes. 3 of them are fiscal incentives given by the government to employers and to employees and employers. One of them is focused on first-timers, people who have never had an organized sector job before, where we will pay 1 month's salary. This is to induce employers to take first-timers, because first-timers may not be, they don't have previous experience, they might be less productive, they may have a longer learning curve. So we are saying, please take them, we'll subsidize them by giving them 1 month's wage up to 15,000 rupees. The second scheme is similar, but it says we'll give you 72% of one person year's wage over a period of 4 years if you take at least 50 first-timers, or you take 25% of your earlier number of employees. So it induces companies to employ more people in large numbers, and if they have to spend some money on training this person, then they have the benefit of a subsidy from the government. So again, the idea is to make it easier for those who have not entered the job market to get a job in the organized sector. The third scheme provides subsidies for any incremental job creation in any sector, and it doesn't have to be first-timers. And in this case, we provide a subsidy for 2 years, paying the entire EPFO contribution of the employer. The idea being that if you are in a business where you can do certain things incrementally through mechanization, automation, or through labor, then we are trying to reduce the cost of labor and incentivize a move towards more labor-intensive means of production. And this is possible, because even in a high-tech sector, the extent to which you use more artificial intelligence versus you use programmers, or the more, do you do all your packaging automated, or do you use labor for packaging? These are all decisions that companies can make. And at the margin, fiscal incentives make it more attractive to hire labor. That's the intent of the third scheme. There is a fourth scheme, which is where we will partner with the private sector to provide internships to a large number of young men and women, and this will be done through the CSR expenditure of companies. We don't expect companies to do anything from their bottom line. The existing CSR expenditure of large companies, which they are anyway mandated to do under the Companies Act, we want them to focus that to a greater degree on the training expenditure. And the government will pay will pay the lion's share of the cost of the intern, including incidental costs for him to join and to go back. And all that the company has to do is pay 10% of the stipend and cover the actual incidental costs of the training. And we expect this to work on a voluntary basis. There's no compulsion. It will be done by the top 500 companies who are required to do CSR anyway.
that brings a lot of clarity on the internship bit and the employment plan envisaged in the Budget 2024. Mr. Somanathan, thank you so much for being with us on Republic TV.
Pleasure.
Amity has been ranked India's #1 private university in the recently released Education World Rankings, a testimony to Amity's globally benchmarked standards in education.
Mr. Chairman, Director Cheadle, what grade would you give the Secret Service's performance in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13?
As I've stated, ma'am, this was clearly a failure. I would grade the agents and officers who selflessly threw themselves in front of the president and neutralized the threat an A. I think that we need to examine the events that led up to and prior to that day.
You stated in 2021 that the Secret Service has a zero-fail mission. It's clear that the events of July 13 show a cascade of failures that cost Corey Comparator his life, nearly cost former president his life, and injured David Dutch and James Copenhaver. When an agency fails spectacularly at its mission, those responsible must be held accountable, and the problems must be fixed so they cannot happen again. Why should the American people or the officials you're responsible for protecting have confidence in your ability to lead the Secret Service after such a spectacular failure?
I appreciate the question, and I am committed to finding answers so that we can make the agency stronger after this.
You said on July 15 that the buck stops with me. How are you taking accountability for the Secret Service's failures during the July 13 assassination attempt on President Trump?
I have taken accountability, and I will continue to take accountability. I am responsible for leading the agency, and I am responsible for finding the answers to how this event occurred and making sure that it doesn't happen again.
So I would like to explore how you got the job as director of the United States Secret Service. Is it typical for the director of the Secret Service to be recommended for the role at the behest of a president's family and senior staff, perhaps at the request of Jill Biden or Anthony Bernal?
I got the job as a director of the Secret Service because I spent 27 years in an agency with a mission that I absolutely love. I started my career in Detroit. I worked my way up through investigations and protection.
Was there competition for the position?
You would have to ask those who were involved in the interview process.
But you think you are the best person in the country to head the Secret Service?
I think that I am the best person to lead the Secret Service at this time.
The Secret Service receives billions in funding each year, as has been explained by my colleagues here. In fact, you've had an increase in real terms of 55%. As you're no doubt aware, staffing levels for those assigned to protect the president, former presidents, and other senior officials has decreased by about 350 between 2014 and today. Clearly, a lack of financial resources not to blame for the staffing shortage. In 2022, the Secret Service saw nearly half its workforce leave in 1 year. And during the same year, it was ranked dead last among law enforcement agencies in the best places to work in the federal government. Can you explain why your agency was so poorly rated and why so many staff left in just 1 year?
So with all due respect, I dispute the statistic of half of the employees leaving in 2022. I think that has been inaccurate data that's been reported out there. But what I can tell you is, as I have returned as the director of the agency, we have had an increase in hiring and staffing and an increase in resources, and we are committed to continue to hire so that we can be staffed appropriately to meet the dynamic mission that we have.
Well, you may want to dispute it, but it's out there. My understanding, given the high-profile failures and rotten culture at the Secret Service during your nearly 2-year tenure, Why should the American people have any confidence in your ability to lead the Secret Service to perform its zero-fail mission to protect our senior leaders?
The Secret Service has an incredible culture. Our men and women place service over self. They come in every day willing to risk their lives for our protective mission, and they work investigations that
At a time when the country is making advancements economically and witnessing overall development, taxation plays a very key important role. Today I am joined by Revenue Secretary Mr. Sanjay Malhotra to talk about taxation, GST and much more. Sir, today we saw in the budget there were changes in the personal income tax slab under the new tax regime. What do you think are going to be the ramifications with regard to this?
See, for us, the public of the country is the most important stakeholder. And so keeping in mind their interests, we have reduced tax rates in the new tax regime. There are three major announcements in that regard. Number one is the standard deduction for salaried, which increases from 50,000 to 75,000 rupees. Then for family pensioners, there is an increase of 10,000 rupees, and there is also for all others, including the salaried, rejigging a change in the tax rate so as to bring down the tax rate by a maximum amount of about 10,000 rupees. So a salaried person gets a relief of about 17,500 rupees in case he opts for the new tax regime. This we are also hopeful, will help in boosting consumption in the economy, because this means that there is more money in the hands of the public.
Sir, what is the rationale behind the short-term capital gain and the long-term capital gain? You have brought in changes. What is the rationale behind that?
The main rationale is to simplify taxation provisions. That has been a constant endeavor of the government for the last 5 years, 7 years. You are aware that in indirect taxation, a transformative change was brought in by the introduction of GST. That simplified taxation, made life simpler for all, for the trade and industry, while keeping the tax rates or the tax incidence low for the consumers. Similarly, the new corporate tax regime was introduced without exemptions and deductions. Personal income tax regime was introduced without exemptions and deductions. These are all moves to make taxation simpler so that it is easy to read, easy to understand, easy to implement for all. A number of announcements have been made with regard to this, even in this budget. Major being, this comprehensive review of the income tax laws, reduction in the number of rates of customs duties so as to reduce classification disputes, and a number of measures relating to capital gains being one, charities being another, TDS rates being reduced in this budget itself. So this exercise of changing the rates is more a rationalization, more a simplification, because till now the number of tax rates, both for long term and short term, as well as the holding periods, were different, which made the taxation very, very complex. So now both for short term and long term we have two primary rates, and for holding period also there is either 1 year for listed financial assets, and for all others it's 2 years. So it makes taxation simple.
I'm sure our viewers would want to know that the custom duty on gold, silver, platinum, mobile phones and mobile chargers has been reduced, and this comes at a time when India is a leading hub of mobile manufacturing. What was the thought process behind this custom duty reduction, sir?
So these are two different reductions.
Amity has been ranked India's #1 private university in the recently released Education World Rankings, a testimony to Amity's globally benchmarked standards in education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I hope the American people do appreciate the incredible daily risks Secret Service agents take on our behalf. You mentioned there are 36 regular clients you've got that you protect constantly, but I was participating in the NATO summit just 2 weeks ago. We had 32 heads of government and heads of state, plus visiting heads of state and heads of government. Presumably, you provided protection for all of them.
That is correct.
Just saying. Help us understand, however, I will stipulate that there's an ongoing investigation. You don't want to go into too much detail on that until you've been able to ascertain all the facts and analyze what they mean. You can understand, however, the anxiety we and the American public have about how could this happen and how can we ensure it can't recur. Now, there are some things my friends on one particular side of the aisle don't really want to talk about, like AR-15s and access to them by a 20-year-old, or anybody for that matter. Presumably, Director Cheadle, the ubiquity of weapons, guns in America, especially assault weapons or semi-automatic weapons, that's helped your job and the mission of your agencies, right? It's made it less complicated, isn't that true?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question.
Real simple. More guns, especially dangerous ones, have made your job protecting people easier. Is that not right?
I think from every
Director Cheadle, this is simple English. More guns, do they make your job more complicated or less complicated in protecting these 36 clients and visiting heads of state and heads of government that come to Washington?
I think the Secret Service needs to take into account.
I didn't ask that.
They're in.
I'm sorry. I asked a simple question, which deserves a simple answer. The ubiquity of guns, dangerous weapons in America, like AR-15s, has that made your job, that is to say the mission of the Secret Service, easier or more difficult?
I think the threat environment for protecting our Secret Service protectees is always difficult, and that's dynamic, and it's always evolving.
We stipulate it's always difficult. Again, this is a simple one. Does the ubiquity of guns make your job easier or more difficult today?
I understand the Second Amendment rights of individuals.
I didn't ask that question. I'm not questioning the Second Amendment. I'm asking a simple analysis, Director Cheadle. And I can tell you, you're not making my job easier in terms of assessing your qualification for continuing on as director. Please answer the question. You're the head of the Secret Service. You're speaking on behalf of 8,000 members who put their lives on the line. We just had a failure by your own admission. Do guns make your job easier or harder?
I think the job of the Secret Service is difficult on every day, and we need to make sure that we are mitigating all threats, whether that be weapons,
isn't my question.
personnel.
That is not my question, and now I think you're evading the answer, which is not a hard one.
I am sorry that you feel that way, sir.
How else could I feel, Director Cheadle, when you're clearly avoiding a direct answer to a very simple declarative question? We almost lost a presidential candidate the other day. A 20-year-old had access to his father's AR-15 and got on top of a roof.
2,800 of their workers were killed during your term.
Please, do not make wild allegations.
No, I'm saying it is a claim.
See, our regime, it was such a good regime that every scheme, even if people did not vote for us, is not delivered without discrimination and without corruption, without even seeing which party they have voted. That was our government. And here you have this government, just because somebody is not voted for them, are going on a rampage, and you start off with this kind of a campaign, and there is no end to it.
From Asia's largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
This is Republic and you're watching This is Exclusive with me, Shabanson. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time after that major poll debacle in Andhra Pradesh, former Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Jagan Reddy, has opened up. But he's lashed out at the TDP, saying that the TDP is indulging in political violence. He says 30 people have been killed in just about 45 days, and the fact that he is now camping here in the national capital. Tonight on This is Exclusive, for the first time, former Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Jagan Reddy, talks about his alliance and the fact whether at all he's tilting towards the Congress party. Why else would he be inviting the Congress party in the first place as far as the exhibition here in the national capital is concerned? Also, Akhilesh Yadav shared the stage with Jagan Reddy. Is this a sign of Jagan Reddy tilting towards the Indie bloc? Tonight on This is Exclusive, that explosive interview with Jagan Reddy. TDP has now hit back. We've also spoken to Union Minister Chandrasekhar Pemasani. He says Jagan Reddy is a habitual liar. Show me the proof, says the TDP. Let's take you through the headlines we're tracking at this hour. Jagan Reddy's charges at TDP accuses Nara Lokesh of inciting political violence in Andhra Pradesh. Jagan Reddy accuses TDP of going on a political rampage after winning the state assembly polls. Union Minister Chandrasekhar Pemasani of the TDP responds to Jagan's allegations, accuses him of being a habitual liar. The 2008 Malegaon blast case is in its final stages, hearing to begin soon. Colonel Purohit speaks for the first time. Mega face-off between the Indie and BJP. Mamta's refuge to Bangladesh's comment has gone viral. Kavada seeks report. BJP stages protest. Well, this is one of the toughest challenges that former Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Jagan Reddy, faces. This after the poll debacle. He's now in the national capital. Some say that he has been isolated. The discreet alliance that Jagan Reddy had with the BJP, did it really not help the YSRCP? And where does he stand today? As he is in the national capital, is he now wooing the Indie leaders? Now, this is his first interview after the poll debacle, but he focuses largely on the violence in the state of Andhra Pradesh. To any question, he says that there is an attempt that has been made by us to try and divert. If at all, he's been asked about his discreet alliance with the BJP, and more importantly, whether at all he is moving or tilting towards the Indie bloc. Listen in to what YS Jagan Reddy had to say. Exactly a decade ago, he was a businessman. Out of the blue, his father called him for an election campaigning. And then, of course, from the home pocket bureau of Kadapa, you've had Jagan Reddy beginning his political innings. But he faces one of the toughest challenges. Jagan Reddy is joining us on the interview. Thank you very much, Jagan, for joining us. We're speaking at a time when we see a massive political challenge that you face in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Would you blame your discreet alliance with the BJP not really working?
Shravan, let's not deviate from the topic, Shravan. See, today the topic is about the plight of Andhra Pradesh and what's happening in Andhra Pradesh. So let's not deviate from this topic and move to another topic, because what it would do is it would dilute the plight in Andhra Pradesh. So let's not deviate.
So you are saying just a short while ago, you've put out an exhibition. What you say is a display of what's really happening in Andhra Pradesh. The claim that you make is in just about 45 days, there have been several killings and mostly targeted towards the YSRCP. The TDP, on the other hand, claims that there are only 4 killings, and that too claimed by the DGP of the state. How do you really respond to that?
They're in government, and somebody from their side says 3 people of theirs were killed and only the entire killings were only 4. How can anybody be so naive? In fact, I mean, these photographs that are displayed, the video clippings that you see, they themselves are proof. So before you could come to any before you could make any judgmental call, all what I request you is show some empathy. Please have a look at these photographs. Please have a look at these video clippings, and then make a judgmental call for yourself. See, who is in power doesn't make a difference. See, yesterday we were in power, today they are in power, tomorrow we'll come back to power. That is not the issue. But the issue is, when somebody is in power, what are they doing? See, if equitable justice is not imparted, then democracy would limp. This is exactly what is happening in the state of Andhra Pradesh. I mean, you have someone like Nara Lokesh actually come out with a red book, and that red book is blatantly displayed in hoardings all over the state. He holding this red book and making hoardings of it and blatantly displayed all over the state. What kind of a message are you sending? That you're literally sending the message to the entire government machinery and to the police that our people will go on a vandalizing mode, our people would destroy properties, our people would attack people, our people would kill people, yet cops are not supposed to do anything. This is my
They say that you've not put out the list.
This is my red book.
They say that you've not
This
put
is
out
the red
list.
book. Can you imagine somebody actually being a chief minister's son displaying a red book? In fact, that's a photograph. And making hoardings of it. Literally sending a message to the entire state. And you start off with a red book at your level. And it doesn't end there. Everybody at the village level goes ahead implementing their own red books, which ultimately is translating into this.
Let me also draw a parallel, Jagan, because the reason why I'm asking, the political violence being an issue, not just in the state of Andhra Pradesh, we've seen similar cases happening in the state of West Bengal. BJP makes a similar claim. Trinamool Congress says that, this is not political violence, it's personal rivalry. TDP today says 2,800 of their workers were killed during your term. How do you really respond? Because there is no clarity really coming in from both the parties on this.
Please, do not make wild allegations.
No, I'm saying it is a claim.
And divert this topic, what is actually happening in Andhra Pradesh. See, our regime, it was such a good regime that every scheme, even if people did not vote for us, was door delivered. Without discrimination and without corruption, without even seeing which party they have voted. That was our government. And here you have this government, just because somebody is not voted for them, are going on a rampage, destroying properties.
So you're saying not killing,
beating them up,
CP workers, but
beating them up, killing people. Every YSR sympathizers, YSR voters, YSR. See, you start off at the top level, and there is no control on law and order. See, you start off with you publicizing these hoardings with a red book, and you start off with this kind of a campaign, and there is no end to it. There is lawlessness everywhere. So every village, every mandal, people have their own. They have their own red books to implement. See, this is one case. This person who is feeding the cake, and this is MLA's wife, This is the person, he's feeding the cake to an MLA's wife. And this person, in broad daylight, literally hacked people, literally hacked the person to death. Literally hacked the person to death in broad daylight. 7:30 or so in the evening, you have video clippings also being displayed right in this arena itself. In fact, in this book that I would be giving it to you for a takeout, in fact, this also would display this ghastly incident. This person killed this person in this manner. And cases, you know what cases are booked? You only limit this case only to this person. What about this? What about this? This is the MLA. This is the person.
So you do have an option, Jagan, at this point in time, because there has to be a purpose. You came to the national capital hoping that there would be some sort of a support drawing attention towards the current situation in Andhra Pradesh. A short while back, you've had Akhilesh Yadav visiting. Now that comes across as a surprise to someone because you've always been seen closer to the BJP. How do you really want to take this forward? Are you looking at support coming across from the opposition parties?
Shravan, we have invited everybody. We have invited even the Congress, we have invited even the BJP. We have invited every party to please come, have a look at what has happened in Andhra Pradesh state. These are not what, I'm not talking something from the air. I'm displaying photographs. I'm displaying video clippings. Please show some empathy. I mean, it is the duty of you. I request the media. I request the politicians. I request the leaders of every party. This is not a party issue. So today, they are in power. Tomorrow, we would be in power. Yesterday, we were in power. But this is not how one does politics. If this were to be encouraged, if this were to be diverted, if this were to be not given the attention that it deserves, then mark my word, democracy would always be limping. This is the reality of what is happening in the state. So my humble request is, you see for yourself and then make up your mind whether to support the cause or not.
Are you hoping that the Union Home Minister and the Prime Minister would be intervening in this entire issue? Because at the end of the day, let's be honest, Jagan, you do share a good equation with the Home Minister as well as the Prime Minister. Are you hoping that despite being in alliance with the TDP, the BJP would take cognizance of what's happening in the state of Andhra Pradesh?
We've asked for ultimately, Shravan, we have asked for appointment with Honorable Prime Minister. We'd also asked for an appointment from the Honorable Home Minister. We've also asked for an appointment even from the President of this country. Now, whether they will give the appointment, whether they will not give the appointment, of course, is not in my hands. But all what I can do is request them. And that is what I've done. Not only them, I've requested all the parties to please come forward, see what is happening in the state of Andhra Pradesh for yourself. See the video clippings, see the photographs, and then you take a call whether they should be encouraged or whether they should be discouraged. This is all what I'm asking. I'm asking everybody. People, some of them might want to come, some of them might not want to come. But there is very little what I can do to prevail over them.
You'll be hoping that cutting across party lines you get the support, even if it happens to be the opposition parties, and also not forgetting the kind of animosity that you've had towards the Congress party. You are okay with if the Congress comes and supports you?
See, it's got nothing to do with any personal animosity towards any single individual or any single party. This is much beyond that. This is an issue which can happen to anybody, which should not be accepted in democracy. So cutting across the parties, we have made requests to every party to please come, pay a visit, see for yourself, understand the situation, and if you deem it fit, condemn it.
These images that you have put out, the message that you're essentially also trying to send across is the fact that political violence has reached the zenith. and the fact that you would expect someone to come and intervene. Do you believe that the politics in Andhra Pradesh has become extremely bitter, starting from the time when Chandrababu Naidu was jailed to now the kind of political violence that is taking place? Is it a tit for tat?
See, there is no tit for tat, Shravan. We have not done anything. That's the most important thing. In fact, in our regime, people who not voted for us also were door delivered. Every scheme was door delivered to them in the most transparent way, without discrimination, without corruption. There's a Grama Sachivalayam for every 2,000 houses established in every village. There's a volunteer for every 60, 70 houses doing the door delivery without discrimination, without corruption. That is what we had propagated, that is what we had done. In our regime, we have never promoted such kind of things. Things would have been different.
So you say this is political vendetta?
This is absurdness. This is stupidity and madness. Can you believe somebody showing a red book and writing Shravan's name in that red book and actually making a hoarding of that red book and making a poster of it and then fixing it all over the city capital in which Shravan's name is printed, and then vandalizing Shravan's house and assaulting Shravan? What kind of world are we living in?
You did the same when you were in power. They said that 2,800 of their
Shravan,
people
nobody
were killed.
does these kind of stupid things, Shravan. This is going.
You did not give a list.
Shravan, please, you need come. Even just for asking something, please do not, twist these facts, because nobody does these kind of stupid things. And my only humble request is, please make sure that you see for yourself, make a judgmental call, and condemn such incidents. Such incidents are not healthy for democracy.
Well, thank you very much.
In fact, Jagan Mohan Reddy refuses to answer the question that whether at all 2,800 TDP workers were killed during his regime. Now, that's an allegation that the TDP has also leveled. Once again, a question was also posed to the TDP on this entire matter, because this has also taken a national scale, a national issue that it's becoming in the parliament. Listen to what Union Minister Chandrasekhar Pevasani had to say, responding to the allegations that have been leveled by Jagan Mohan Reddy. Former Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Jagan Mohan Reddy, has leveled sensational allegations against Chandrababu Naidu's government. Joining us on this broadcast is Union Minister Chandrasekhar Pevasani. Mr. Pevasani, thank you very much for joining us on this broadcast. Jagan Mohan Reddy, in his first interview to Republic TV, says that political violence in Andhra Pradesh is at its peak. 300 murdered. He says there is visual evidence and no action is being taken by your government in Andhra Pradesh.
See, first of all, Jagan Mohan Reddy is known for fake propaganda and false information. The way he does it is, what we ask is, he said 30 people have been killed. Let him give the names of those 30 people and where those murders have happened. As far as I know, there are only 5 things that happened, 5 killings, and there were 2 that were related to YCP, and there are 3 that were related to killings of TDP people. And you might ask, when TDP is in power, how those 3 people got killed. This is what happens. In some of these villages, there is so much personal rivalry, and if they did not get the majority of what they anticipated, they go and attack the opposite people. So this has been going on for a long time. Every time the government changes, typically for the first 1 to 2 months, few killings would happen, like 3 to 5. That happens to both parties. But what he was saying, the proportionality, 30 killings has not happened as far as we know. And this is the typical drama that Jagan Mohan Reddy does, because he lost so miserably with 11 seats. He could not go to the assembly in Andhra Pradesh, could not show his face to the people. So he came here to do a drama.
He says that there is visual evidence. An exhibition has been laid out here in the national capital for everyone to witness. Images of broad daylight killing, people being hacked to death, Are you saying that this visual evidence is also fake in nature, and perhaps some would also accuse you of justifying the killings that are taking place in the state of Andhra Pradesh?
No. Nobody justifies killings of anybody, right? We regret whatever, whether it is YCP candidates or TDP candidates, we regret for those kind of things. But if you look at it, Chandrababu Naidu sir, this is the 4th time he has become a chief minister. We have, see, killing, atrocities, violence is not in TDP DNA. It is not the TDP Chandrababu Naidu sir DNA. He is a statesman. The killings, atrocities, all those is the DNA of Jagan Reddy. He has been there for 5 years as a chief minister, and he killed almost 2,800 people by his party workers.
Mr. Pemasani, are you then suggesting, if at all evidence is provided by Jagan Reddy, your government will act on it?
Absolutely. Absolutely will act on it.
But the fact here is that you are saying that evidence has to be provided, only then some action would be taken. On the other hand, you've had the YSRCP indicating that we have provided the visual evidence. It is abundantly clear that killings have taken place. Then why is it that the state DGP, as they claim, is lying?
See, the killings, as I said, were not 30. There were 5 killings happened, and all those cases were registered for those 5 killings. And this has happened for 2 of those were related to killings of YCP people, and 3 of them actually belongs to killing of the TDP people by YCP cadre.
Okay.
But wherever there was an evidence, the cases have been filed.
Jagan Reddy has categorically taken on Nara Lokesh. He says that the killings are taking place because there is a red book that is being flashed, which is an indication of the fact that the authorities have given, the stamped TDP workers have been given the green signal by none other than Nara Lokesh.
See, Red Book has nothing to do with this killing. These killings at the villages level due to personal issues that has been going on for years. See, the Red Book was initially came into the picture because when YSRCP was in government, they did not allow either Chandrababu Naidu sir or Lokesh sir to do their public meetings or padayatras, and the government officials and machinery was used to put cases on our TDP workers. So to give confidence, Lokesh sir came up with this red book. Whoever or whichever official are involved in these unethical activities, they will be taken to the court.
Right.
So this is just to remember their names. But it has nothing to do with the killings, and it has nothing to do with the party cadre. It is strictly related to the government officials who are supposed to act according to the law, but did not.
Okay.
And none of these killings or what you are suggesting or what he has been suggesting has to do with the officials.
Let me now shift gears and also take you on with regards to the responses that have really come in after the budget was tabled by the Union Finance Minister. Some have also said that when Jagan Reddy was in power, no such announcements were made. So typically, it appears that this is a budget to try and keep the TDP happy.
See, the TDP formed alliance with the NDA 2 months before the elections. Nobody expected this kind of post-election scenario at that time, because we wanted to support the NDA government based on what Modi ji government has done over the last 10 years to this country. So we categorically decided on that, and the measures that they have given to our Andhra Pradesh in the budget are more or less same as what has been promised 10 years back in the Reorganization Act. So none of these are new for us, either Amaravati capital or Polavaram project. These are not new. I mean, these were supposed to be done 10 years back. And actually, justice was delayed for Andhra Pradesh until this time. And now Modi ji government has delivered what was supposed to be done.
I also want to ask you with regards to the developments that took place in the national capital earlier in the day with Akhilesh Yadav sharing the stage with Jagan Reddy. Does your party essentially believe that with a failed
discrete alliance with the BJP. Perhaps Jagan Reddy is now tilting towards the Congress, because in an interview to me, he says that he does not have any animosity towards the Congress party.
See, I cannot comment on their friendship or their relationship at this time. But what I tell Akhilesh ji is to actually go to the Andhra Pradesh if he has couple days of time. Talk to the people in the ground and understand the realities, and don't believe Mr. Jagan Reddy's fake promises.
Well, thank you very much, Chandrasekhar Pemasani, for joining us on This Is Exclusive.
Thank you.
Well, that's all that we could pack in this edition of This Is Exclusive. We'll be back tomorrow with more exclusive stories only for you.
Director Cheadle, your opening statement indicates that the Secret Service constructed a security plan for the site in Pennsylvania. I'm assuming that security plan would also include the security footprint for the site, but it also would be based upon a threat assessment for the threats associated with Donald Trump and the crowd in attendance. Would it not include a threat assessment?
Yes, it would.
So that threat assessment, as we know, basically would have started with, there's a generalized threat against Donald Trump because he is a presidential candidate. Then it would have gone to, he's a former president, and he gets security coverage just as Bush, Clinton, Carter, Obama do. And then you also have the heightened political environment. Even for those, it's clear that the security footprint, that the threat assessment was insufficient, which permitted then a 20-year-old to actually enter with a weapon and shoot Donald Trump. But I want to ask you about two other aspects of the threat assessment. It is known and public that Iran is a threat risk for Donald Trump. They're a threat risk for John Bolton, former Secretary of State Pompeo, and Donald Trump, because they have indicated they want to assassinate them as a result of retaliation for the killing of Soleimani. That is both, for Iran, a generalized threat. They're targeting these individuals, but also most recently, a specific threat to Donald Trump himself. Now, I want to enter into the record by UC a Department of Justice Public Affairs release, a CNN article, an article from Fox News, and an article from CBS, all of which acknowledge
Without objection to order.
that this threat exists for Donald Trump from Iran, and that there are specific threats, most recently, that have been acknowledged. Director Cheadle, have you read the intelligence of the generalized threat to Donald Trump by Iran as a result of their desire to retaliate for the killing of Soleimani?
I have.
Have you read or been briefed about the intelligence of the specific recent threat to Donald Trump from Iran?
Yes, I have.
Director Wray, when we were getting our briefing, indicated that he thought the threat assessment should have included this threat from Iran. Is it your testimony today that the threat assessment, since you've read this intelligence, was sufficient to protect him from this threat from Iran?
My testimony today is that the information that we had at the time was known.
Was it sufficient? Director Cheadle, was it sufficient for the Iranian threat that you said you have read the intelligence briefings for?
That information was passed to...
Well, I'm not asking the bureaucratic issue of who did it get passed around to. Director Cheadle, was it sufficient for the specific and generalized threat to Donald Trump's life from Iran?
Yes, I do believe it was.
Director Cheadle, is an Iranian assassin more capable than a 20-year-old?
Sir, I think we've acknowledged that there was gaps and a failure that day.
When I raised this issue with Director Wray, he was incensed. He was shocked that the threat assessment of Iran did not seem to be, as he and I discussed, baked in to your security footprint and your threat assessment. And he went on to say that the generalized threat that he has told the whole country that we are under from a potential terrorist threat. He has said we're under the highest threat level since 9/11, that the lights are flashing red. And he has specifically indicated that people have crossed the southern border as a result of the Biden administration's policy, and that there are in our country today terrorists and individuals who are affiliated with terrorist groups and organizations. That would be a heightened threat environment, Director Cheadle, would it not?
Yes.
In his public statements, he has said he is making these statements because he wants people to take them into consideration in threat assessments, specifically. Now, that would be a threat not just to Donald Trump, but it would also be a threat to the crowd there, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Are ISIS terrorists and Al-Qaeda terrorists and international groups and terrorists more capable than a 20-year-old in pulling off either a mass shooting or an assassination of Donald Trump?
Sir, again, there was clearly a breakdown and a failure that day.
Have you read the intelligence of the terrorists that are currently in the United States that Director Wray speaks, and those individuals that are here that are affiliated with terrorist groups and organizations that are in the process, as Director Wray said, of representing a significant threat of a terrorist attack occurring in the United States?
I have read reports that apply specifically to the Secret Service's mission.
Director Cheadle, because Donald Trump is alive, and thank God he is, you look incompetent. If Donald Trump had been killed, you would have looked culpable. There is no aspect of this that indicates that there has been any protection to Donald Trump. The threat was identified before he took the stage, and the shooter was only killed after Donald Trump himself was killed. Not only should you resign, if you refuse to do so, President Biden needs to fire you, because his life, Donald Trump's life, and all the other people which you protect are at risk because you have no concept of the aspect that the security footprint needs to be correlated to the threat. I yield back.
Amity has been ranked India's #1 private university in the recently released Education World Rankings. A testimony to Amity's globally benchmarked standards in education.
Hotel Management with AI. Join International Institute of Hotel Management.
Urged in these stages protest resorts to sloganeering and ruckus over Modi 3.0's first budget. Big development in Malegaon blast investigation. Special NIA court begins. Final hearing. Face off over Mamata's refuge to Bangladeshi's comment. Governor seeks report. BJP stages protest in Kolkata. Amid massive showdown over NEET scam, Bihar Assembly passes anti-paper leak bill. 26-year-old UPSC aspirant electrocuted to death in national capital. Who's accountable? Plane crashes during takeoff in Kathmandu, Nepal. Media reports suggest 18 bodies recovered, pilot rescued. Well, let's begin this live and breaking with a big lead coming in connection with the Pune hit-and-run case. Crime Branch in Pune has recorded the statement of NCP MLA Sunil Tingre for 5.5 hours. His statement was recorded in the last week of June by the Crime Branch. In fact, this information coming out now, and Tingre was questioned over his presence in the police station after the hit-and-run case happened in that month itself. The Pune double murder probe now. NCP MLA Sunil Tingre of the Ajit Pawar faction has been quizzed for 5.5 hours by the Crime Branch, is the information we are getting. Let's try and connect with our reporter on the ground. I'm told Satya Prakash is joining us live. Satya Prakash, over to you. Okay, we're trying and connecting with Satya Prakash. He's going to join us live from Mumbai. He's someone who has tracked the case closely. He has been reporting from the ground in Pune. And this information coming in now, let's try to find out why the information is coming in now, given the fact that Sunil Tingre's role was very visible. He was seen at the police station. He had visited the police station. in the morning, the day after the incident or the accident in which those two precious lives were lost, which subsequently turned into a murder probe. Okay, we are not able to connect with Satya Prakash, so we move on. All right, another story we are closely tracking for you, friends, is special court in Mumbai is beginning to hear the final arguments in the Malegaon 2008 Malegaon blast case. Almost 16 years after the incident, the last witness in the case was brought in by Lieutenant Colonel Prasad Purohit and accused in the case on Tuesday. Lieutenant Colonel Prasad Purohit had filed an application seeking the recall of a witness, an army officer who had been brought in as a defense witness earlier.